The war had ended, but peace was far from real. King's Landing was burned, ashes still in the air, and the Iron Throne, once the dream of many, was gone, melted by dragon fire. After Daenerys' terrifying assault on the capital, everyone expected her to declare herself Queen of the Seven Kingdoms. But something changed. Daenerys stood in the ruins, her face hard, her silver hair blowing in the smoky wind. She had Drogon by her side, but in her heart there was emptiness. Tyrion, who had once believed in her, now stood as her prisoner, silent but watching her closely. And Sansa Stark, far in the north, had already declared that the north would never bend the knee again. But then a raven arrived in Winterfell. It came from Daenerys herself. The message was unexpected. She wanted to talk not about ruling, not about surrender, but about building something new. Sansa was suspicious. She didn't trust the Dragon Queen, especially after what happened in King's Landing. But Tyrion's name was on the letter too. He had added a few lines, urging Sansa to listen. So a meeting was arranged in the neutral lands between the North and the Riverlands. Sansa arrived with Brienne and a few trusted guards. Tyrion came with no soldiers, only a cloak and the look of a man who had lost almost everything. Daenerys arrived last, flying in with Drogon, but she landed far away to not scare anyone. Her face looked tired, but there was something different in her eyes, like the fire inside her had cooled just a little. They sat under a large, dead tree. No one spoke for a moment. Then Daenerys broke the silence. "I burned the city," she said, her voice low. "I lost the people. I lost Jon. I almost lost myself." Sansa raised an eyebrow. "Why tell me this?" "Because I can't rule this land alone. I tried to break the wheel, but I became the wheel. I want to change. But I need help people who understand the North, who understand loyalty, truth, and strength." Tyrion nodded. "We need to unite. The realm is broken. Enemies will rise again. But if the North stands with the Dragon Queen, not under her, but beside her, we can build something better." Sansa didn't reply right away. She looked at Daenerys. She remembered how proud and wild she had seemed before. Now she seemed real. Broken, maybe, but real. "What are you offering?" Sansa finally asked. "A northern alliance," Daenerys said. "You rule the north your way. I rule the south with new laws. No forced loyalty. No thrones built on blood. We share power. Tyrion helps build a new council of leaders. No one person will ever rule all again." Sansa looked at Brienne, then at Tyrion, then back at Daenerys. "And if I say no, then I'll leave. No war. No dragons. I'll go east and never return. But I believe we can do better, together." There was a long silence again. Then Sansa stood. "I'll consider it." As she turned to leave, Daenerys added, "Thank you, Lady Stark." That night, Sansa couldn't sleep. She looked out over the walls of Winterfell, thinking of Jon, of everything they had lost. Could this really work? Could Daenerys be trusted again? Was Tyrion truly loyal, or playing another game? But the truth was, the realm needed something different, something more than swords and fire. Maybe it was time to build, not conquer. Sansa sent another raven the next morning. "We'll talk again." This time in Winterfell. Winterfell hadn't seen a dragon in centuries until now. As Daenerys flew in on Drogon's back, the people of the north stood frozen in silence. Fear danced in their eyes, memories of the last dragon's fire still fresh in their minds. But Sansa had ordered them not to panic. "We are no longer at war," she'd said. Still, trust didn't come easy in the north. Daenerys landed Drogon beyond the walls, out of respect. She came to the gates on foot, wearing a thick northern cloak gifted to her by Tyrion. She looked different, less like a queen, more like a traveler. The guards opened the gate, but no one welcomed her with smiles. Inside, the air was thick with tension. Arya stood by Sansa's side, her hand on the hilt of her dagger. She didn't trust Daenerys not one bit. Bran watched silently from his chair, as if seeing more than anyone else. Tyrion was already there, sitting quietly by the fire, warming his hands but watching every movement in the room. "You're brave to come here," Arya said coldly. Daenerys didn't flinch. "I'm not here for war." Sansa stood. "Then why are you here now, Dragon Queen?" "To keep my word," Daenerys replied. "You asked for a second meeting. I came." There was silence for a moment. Then Sansa nodded. "Come, sit, let's speak honestly." They gathered in the hall, the ancient walls of Winterfell holding stories of thousands of years, and now another one was being written. "We don't forget in the north," Sansa began. "You burned women and children. You killed with fire." "I know," Daenerys said quietly. "I live with it every night. I see their faces. I hear their screams. I don't ask for your forgiveness. I only ask for a chance to be useful." Tyrion stepped in. "She's not the same woman who stormed King's Landing. She's broken. But broken people sometimes build the strongest things." Arya scoffed. "Or they burn everything when they lose again." Bran, who had been silent, finally spoke. His voice calm, distant. "The future is not written. But I've seen paths where unity saves more than swords ever could." Everyone fell silent at that. Bran rarely spoke of visions, unless it truly mattered. Sansa folded her hands. What would this alliance look like? Daenerys leaned forward. "A new council. The North remains free, ruled by the Starks. The South becomes a realm led by choice, not blood. No more Iron Throne. No more kings and queens of everything. A union built by fire and ice, not ruled by it." Arya narrowed her eyes. "And what do you get?" Daenerys smiled, sad and tired. "A second chance. A place to belong." It was a moment of realness. No power, no command. Just a woman stripped of everything, asking for purpose. Sansa looked at her. She saw not the Mad Queen, but someone who had lost everything and still chose diplomacy over destruction. Later that night, Sansa and Arya spoke alone in the Godswood. "She's dangerous," Arya whispered. "Even now." "So are we," Sansa replied. "But maybe she's what we need. We can keep her close, watch her, use her strength for our terms, not hers." Arya didn't respond, but she didn't argue either. The next morning, Sansa stood before the people of Winterfell. "We have a chance to shape a new realm," she said. "Not through blood, but through alliance. Daenerys Stormburn will stay among us for now, as a guest, not a ruler. Watch her, learn her, and let's decide, together, what future we want." Some grumbled, some stared, but none objected. Later that day, Daenerys stood on the walls of Winterfell beside Tyrion, looking over the snowy lands. "Do you think this can work?" she asked. Tyrion smirked. "It has to, or we're all doomed." From the distance, shadows moved in the snow. A spy? A threat? Or just the beginning of new dangers, rising quietly beyond the wall again? Winter was still here, and nothing was ever simple in Westeros. The North was never quick to trust, and even as Daenerys walked the stone corridors of Winterfell, she could feel the weight of every gaze. Whispers followed her like shadows. Children stared with wide eyes, adults with tight lips. No one had forgotten the burning of King's Landing. They didn't see a guest, they saw a dragon in their home. Still, Daenerys didn't hide. She walked openly, dressed plainly, visiting the training yard, the kitchens, even the stables. She helped feed horses, spoke with the blacksmiths, asked questions like a curious traveler rather than a ruler. People didn't speak back at first, but slowly they started to watch with less fear. Sansa, meanwhile, was working behind closed doors. She called trusted bannermen from across the north. House Manderley, House Glover, House Cherwin. They all came to Winterfell, expecting to be told to prepare for war again. Instead, they were told about the Northern Alliance. Some were shocked, Others were furious. "A Stark bending to the Dragon Queen?" roared Lord Glover. "What madness is this?" "She's not asking for loyalty," Sansa replied. "She's offering partnership. And if she turns, we have her dragon in our skies and her neck in our hands." The hall fell silent. Lady Manderley, old and wise, leaned forward. "And what do we gain?" "Peace," Sansa said. "Control of our own land. And a seat at the table that shapes the realm's future." Still, doubts lingered. That night, Tyrion met with Sansa privately in the crypts. The cold air bit at their skin, and the statues of old Stark kings watched silently. "She's trying," Tyrion said. "More than I expected." "She's dangerous," Sansa replied. "So are you," he smiled. Sansa didn't return it. "You love her, don't you?" Tyrion was quiet for a moment, not the way Jon did. "But yes, I loved who she was before the fire took everything." Sansa stared at the cold stone statue of her father. "I'll protect the North, even from her. Don't forget that." Meanwhile, something was stirring in the shadows. Beyond the wall, the few remaining wildlings had seen strange lights in the sky, red and green flashes, loud crashes, and whispers in the snow. Some believed the White Walkers were truly gone. Others weren't so sure. In the south, word of Daenerys' survival began to spread. Whispers became rumors. "The Dragon Queen lives, and she's rebuilding from the north," some said. In the Riverlands, old Lannister loyalists stirred. In the Vale, lords began to fear a second war if Daenerys returned to power. And someone else heard the news to Gendry Baratheon. Now the Lord of Storm's End, Gendry had kept to himself since Arya left him behind. But when ravens flew south with rumors of Daenerys forming an alliance with Sansa Stark, Gendry knew something big was happening. He had no army, but he had a name. A Baratheon name, and the South remembered that name well. In Winterfell, Arya found herself watching Daenerys closely. She followed her in silence, always hidden. But Daenerys noticed. One day, she turned around near the Godswood. "You don't have to stalk me, Arya Stark," she said calmly. "If you want to kill me, just do it." Arya smirked. "If I wanted to, you'd already be dead." Daenerys nodded. "Then why are you watching me?" "Because I don't trust people who smile with secrets in their eyes." Daenerys looked away. "Then we have that in common." Arya hesitated, just for a moment. "Don't give me a reason," she warned. "I won't," Daenerys replied. "I've had enough blood on my hands." Still, trust was fragile. At the next council meeting, Sansa laid out a plan. "We form the Northern Alliance in name and power. Daenerys helps rebuild the South, but not as queen. No throne, no crown, a rotating council of leaders. A shared army for the realm's defense. But if she breaks the terms, she dies," Arya finished coldly. "Daenerys didn't hurt you." She nodded. "Agreed." But just as they sealed the terms, a raven arrived from the wall. The black-cloaked rider looked pale as death. "They're back," he whispered. "Something beyond the wall is moving. It's not dead, but it's not alive either." The room fell silent. Winter wasn't just here. Something worse was coming. And this time, no throne would protect them. The chill in the air had sharpened. Even the old men in Winterfell, the ones who claimed they'd seen every kind of storm, began to speak in hushed voices again about the North, the Wall, and the dead things that once walked beyond it. The Raven's message shook the council. A rider from Castle Black had seen a strange mist creeping across the land beyond the wall. No bodies, no army of dead. Just a darkness that swallowed fire and sound alike. A kind of silence that felt alive. Bran said very little. But when they pressed him, he only said one thing. "It's not over." Sansa called for immediate action. Scouts were sent. Ravens dispatched to loyal houses. Even the Vale was warned, though they were hesitant to believe anything beyond political games. The South had grown comfortable soft even, but the North never forgot. Daenerys didn't wait. She visited Drogon in the frozen fields just beyond Winterfell's walls. The great beast had grown restless, his eyes glowing in the dark like two burning suns. He had been calm lately, as if waiting. Now he stirred more often, sniffing the wind, growling into the snow like he sensed something ancient returning. "I need you," Daenerys whispered to him, resting her forehead against his. "Not for war, for protection." Drogon responded with a deep rumble, pressing his snout gently against her side. Tyrion watched from a distance, his breath visible in the icy air. He turned as Arya approached him. "You still believe in her?" she asked, eyes sharp. "I believe in survival," Tyrion replied. "And she's still the only one with a dragon." Arya didn't argue, but she didn't smile either. In the Great Hall, the new alliance was tested again. The Northern Lords wanted to focus on defense, but Daenerys had another idea. "What if we stop waiting?" she said. "Let's go to the wall, see it ourselves. If something is stirring, we need to know how deep it runs." "And you want to ride there with your dragon?" Lord Trywin asked with a mocking tone. "You'll burn the snow, then say we imagined it." "I'll go alone, if it helps you sleep at night," Daenerys snapped. "No," Sansa interrupted, her voice firm. "You won't go alone. We all go." Arya looked up. "Even me?" "Especially you." Within 2 days, a small party was formed. Sansa, Arya, Daenerys, Tyrion, and Brienne rode north with 24 seasoned soldiers. Drogon flew above them, silent and watchful. It was a strange sight, a dragon soaring over the north, but not as an enemy, as a guardian. When they reached Castle Black, they found the men there shaken. The wildlings who had returned to their free lands years ago had come running back. Something was hunting them, not with swords, but with cold. Entire forests turned to ashless ice. Not burned, not frozen, changed. One wildling named Ricker spoke to the group by firelight. His face was scratched, his eyes wide. "It moves like smoke, has no voice, no body, just ... hunger. We lit a fire. It vanished, but our fires, they didn't stay burning. It's like the cold ate the flame." Daenerys sat silently, the memory of the dead army still alive in her mind. This wasn't the same. This was something new, or worse, something left behind. That night, Bran's raven arrived with another message. "There is no Night King," he wrote. But something deeper remained when the dead fell. It was never just one being. The cold was a curse, an ancient force. It was bound to the Night King. When he died, it broke loose. Now it's free. The message ended with one final sentence. "If it reaches the south, not even dragons will survive it." Sansa read it aloud, and the room went still. For once, Daenerys looked truly afraid. "We need to destroy it," she said. "How?" asked Brienne. "You can't kill fog," Tyrion stood. "We don't fight it with fire or steel. We fight it with something older, something the first men used. Magic, the children of the forest, the ancient ways." Sansa narrowed her eyes. "So we go deeper, past the wall." Arya grinned. "Finally." And so, for the first time in generations, a Stark, a Targaryen, and a Lannister stood united, ready to step into the shadows beyond the world they knew. But not everyone in Winterfell wanted this alliance to survive. Back in the halls of Winterfell, a hidden raven flew south, carrying a message sealed with no name. "The dragon lives. The Starks stand with her. End this now before it spreads." In the dark, someone was plotting. And fire and ice were not the only forces at war. The air beyond the wall was different now. It wasn't just cold, it was heavy. Every breath felt like swallowing snow. The trees were wrong too. Twisted, silent. Some looked like they'd been drained of color, standing like statues made of ash. Daenerys walked ahead with Drogon, flying low above the icy forest, his wings stirring clouds of frost from the ground. Arya moved like a shadow between trees, always watching, always silent. Sansa, wrapped in heavy furs, held her cloak tight, her eyes wide with both fear and awe. Tyrion rode close behind, half shivering, half cursing his decision to come. Brienne never left Sansa's side. They weren't even a day into the haunted lands when they found the first signs. A wildling camp, abandoned, but not destroyed. No blood, no bodies. Just cold ashes and food frozen mid-cook. Like everyone had vanished in the middle of living. "This isn't death," Arya said, scanning the site. "It's disappearance." Bran's message echoed in Sansa's mind. It is not alive. It is not dead. It is old. As night fell, they built a fire. But the flames didn't crackle. The wood burned, yes, but without sound. No smoke. No warmth. "This isn't natural," Tyrion said quietly. "Even fire is afraid here." Daenerys sat close to Drogon. Even the dragon was restless, growling low, his eyes glowing in the dark like two embers in a sea of snow. He kept turning his head toward the east, sniffing something no one else could sense. Sansa tried to sleep, but the silence felt alive. She opened her eyes again and again, convinced she'd heard whispering. But it wasn't voices. It was the wind, or maybe the trees. By morning, Arya was gone. Panic broke out immediately. Brienne began shouting. Daenerys ordered the guards to spread out. Sansa's heart pounded in her chest like a war drum. But Arya wasn't far. She returned within the hour, her face pale, her dagger drawn. "I saw something," she said, breathless. Not a creature, a place, a stone circle, glowing in the snow. They followed her into the woods until they reached it. It was ancient, older than anything they'd seen. 12 standing stones forming a perfect circle. In the center, a swirling patch of black ice. It didn't reflect light. It swallowed it. Bran had written of such places. The children of the forest once used them to trap dark magic. Some believed they were places where the world itself breathed. Daenerys stepped forward. "This is where it begins." She reached into her cloak and pulled out a small cloth bag. From it, she removed a piece of dragonglass, still sharp, still warm to the touch. "I don't know how, but I can feel it," she said. "This stone drinks cold. If we shatter it here, maybe it breaks the curse, or wakes something worse," Tyrion muttered. Daenerys stepped into the circle. The air thickened. Drogon growled, wings spreading wide as if ready to strike. Arya moved closer, dagger raised, eyes locked on every shadow. Daenerys knelt at the center and placed the dragonglass on the black ice. Nothing happened. She stood, heart pounding. Then the ground trembled. A soft hum began. Not a sound, but a vibration, deep and ancient. The stones lit up, faintly glowing blue. The black ice cracked, and from below it something rose. Not a man, not a monster. A form shaped like a human, but made of shadow and mist. Eyes like frozen voids. It spoke without sound. Words entered their minds. "You do not belong here. You broke the chains." Now it spreads. Everyone froze. Daenerys stepped forward, fists clenched. "What are you?" "Memory. Vengeance. Ice unbound." The shadow reached toward her. Drogon screamed from above. Fire erupting, but it didn't touch the form. It passed through like smoke. Sansa grabbed Arya. "We need to leave. Now." But the shadow turned toward Sansa, its head tilted. "You carry the name Stark. You carry the blood of the first men." The ground shook harder. Trees bent as if fleeing. Brienne raised her sword. "We fight it." "No," Arya said. "You can't kill Shadow." Then the voice in their heads whispered one last thing. "The dragon has broken the balance. Fire came too far. Now the frost will take what was stolen." Suddenly, the ice exploded, sending everyone flying. The shadow vanished, but the message remained. The curse had awoken. They fled the circle. Even Dragon looked shaken, refusing to fly too high. Something had been released, and now it was moving toward the realm. When they returned to Castle Black, they found it burned, not by fire, but by silence. Not a single man left. No blood, just their swords, stuck upright in the snow, waiting. The silence at Castle Black was worse than any scream. Sansa stepped carefully over the snow-covered steps, her boots crunching so softly it almost echoed. Every door stood open. Every fire had gone out. The Black brothers were gone, not killed, not taken, just gone. The only thing left behind were their swords, each one stabbed perfectly into the ground, standing like a warning. Tyrion looked around, his face pale. "This isn't just magic," he whispered. "This is a message." Daenerys didn't speak. She stood by one of the blades, reaching down to touch its hilt. The steel was colder than ice. It stung her skin like frostbite. "They didn't run," Brienne said quietly. "They were standing when it came, ready to fight." "But it didn't fight," Arya added. "It erased them." From above, Drogon let out a low growl that rolled through the ruined keep like thunder. His wings stretched wide, and for the first time in days, he looked frightened. Truly frightened. They needed answers, and there was only one person left who might give them. Bran. They returned to Winterfell at once, riding hard through the snow, the fear of the unknown chasing them all the way. When they reached the castle, Bran was already waiting in the courtyard, his eyes distant and strange. He looked older somehow. "It's spreading," he said before they could even speak. "It's not a creature. It's a memory, given form. When the Night King was destroyed, the curse holding this power together shattered. It was never meant to be released." Sansa stepped forward. "What does it want?" Bran's eyes flicked to hers. "Balance, revenge, and silence. It's targeting the Night Watch, the old bloodlines," Arya said. "It knew I was a Stark. It spoke to me." Bran nodded slowly. "The curse sees history as a wound. Fire woke the dead. Ice kept them bound. Now both are broken." Tyrion, rubbing his temples, looked up. "So what do we do? We can't fight fog. We can't reason with shadows." Bran turned to Daenerys. "You brought the fire too far north. The dragons were not meant to cross beyond the wall. The old magic was wounded by your presence. That's why it came for Castle Black first." Daenerys clenched her fists. "Then tell me how to fix it." "There may be one way," Bran said slowly. "But it's not without sacrifice." All eyes turned to him. "There's an ancient place, far north of even the Frostfangs, beyond maps, beyond life, the heart of winter. The curse was born there, before the first men, before even the children. A spring of black ice feeds the cold both magic and madness. If you reach it and destroy it with fire, it might end." "Might?" Brienne asked. "There are no promises left in this world," Bran said. Arya raised an eyebrow. "And how do we even find it?" Bran's eyes clouded. "I've seen the path. But it won't be just cold waiting for you there. It will fight back, not with armies, but with memories, regrets, guilt. Everything you've buried will rise." Silence fell over the hall. Then Daenerys stepped forward. "I'll go. You can't do it alone," Sansa said quietly. Tyrion gave a small nod. "Then we go together." The alliance was never about thrones. It was about survival. Sansa looked at her sister. Arya gave a grin that didn't reach her eyes. "We kill death again. One more time." That night, as they prepared for the final journey, someone watched from the shadows. Sir Davos. He had returned quietly, hearing the rumors of Daenerys' survival and the strange disappearances. But what he found in Winterfell was worse than he imagined. He slipped into the hall where Bran sat alone. "You knew I'd come," Davos said. Bran nodded. "You saw what's coming?" Bran turned his head. "No. I felt what's already here." Davos took a deep breath. Then tell me something. Are we going to survive this? Bran looked away. That depends. On what? On whether the Dragon Queen is willing to die for a world that no longer wants her. Far in the north, the shadow moved again. It had no shape, no mercy. But now, it had a destination. It had seen Daenerys, and it was coming for her. The frostbitten wind screamed like a dying beast as the Alliance rode into the lands where even maps gave up. The snow here wasn't white. It was gray, dead, and it never stopped falling. The sky was a blanket of clouds, thick and low, swallowing the world in endless dusk. Daenerys led the way on Drogon's back, his massive wings pushing through the storm. Beneath her, Sansa rode with Arya, Brienne, and Tyrion. The silence between them wasn't cold, it was heavy. Each of them felt it in their bones. This was no longer a mission. This was a funeral march. They followed the path Bran had shown in visions. Land twisted by time, frozen rivers where whispers came from beneath the ice. Old trees bent backward as if screaming into the wind. The very air felt cursed. Then they saw it, the heart of winter. A jagged black pit surrounded by icy spires that rose like broken teeth from the ground. In its center, a chasm glowed with a pale blue light, swirling like a frozen storm trapped in glass. It hummed not with sound, but with pressure, with memory, with something older than hate. Drogon wouldn't land. He circled above, roaring in discomfort. Fire had no place here. Daenerys jumped down from his back. Her breath fogged in the air, but the cold didn't bite her anymore. It felt familiar, like her blood had always known this place. Tyrion placed a shaking hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to do this alone." "I do," she said. "This curse, this shadow, it came alive because of me. Let it end with me." "No," Arya said firmly. "You're not dying a hero just to wash away the past." Sansa stepped forward, quiet but strong. "She's right. You once brought fire to burn cities. Now bring it to destroy darkness. But don't think you'll walk alone." Daenerys turned to look at the women beside her, one who had once hated her, the other who had nearly killed for that hate. And yet, here they were, walking with her into death. Together, they stepped into the circle of ice, and the world changed. They were no longer standing on snow. They were inside their memories. Sansa was back in the Red Keep, facing Joffrey. She could feel his voice in her ear, cruel and mocking. Her fists clenched. Arya saw the faces of everyone she had killed: Meryn Trant, Walder Frey, the Night King. But this time they didn't fall. They rose, eyes hollow, voices whispering. Was it worth it? Tyrion stood in a chamber of bones. His father, Shay, his brother, all staring at him, disappointed. And Daenerys. She stood in King's Landing again. The bells were ringing. But this time her hands were covered in blood. Not ashes, blood. She turned and saw Jon. His face wasn't angry, just empty. "You broke everything," he said, "and now you want to save it?" She reached for him, but he vanished into dust. "No," she whispered. "Not again." Then she heard the voice, the one that had haunted her dreams since the battle. "You are fire. Fire does not fix, it consumes." She fell to her knees and felt a hand on her shoulder. "Sansa." "This isn't real," Sansa said, eyes wet but strong. "You're not who you were." Then Arya stepped into the memory. "If fire only consumes," she said, "then let it consume this curse." They each reached for Daenerys Stark and pulled her out of her own darkness. The illusion shattered. They were back at the pit. The swirling storm now pulsed violently. The shadow that had haunted them began to form again, rising, hissing, screaming without a mouth. It surged toward them. Drogon roared from above. Daenerys stepped forward, her hands glowing faintly with heat. The dragon responded, unleashing a wall of fire into the storm. It didn't work. The flame passed through the shadow like mist. And then Daenerys did something no one expected. She stepped into the flames. Drogon screamed as fire engulfed her. But she didn't burn. She glowed. Like the Targaryen blood had awakened fully, one last time. Daenerys raised her hands and spoke words no one understood. Words older than Valyria, older than fire. The storm screamed. The pit shook. And then the light exploded. For a moment, the world vanished. When the others woke, the sky was clear. No storm, no pit, no shadow. Drogon sat in the snow, unmoving, wings folded. Sansa stood first. Then Arya. Tyrion crawled to his knees. "Where is she?" he asked, voice broken. Sansa walked forward slowly. There was no sign of Daenerys. Only a circle of melted snow, glowing faintly, like a wound in the world had finally closed. Arya fell to her knees, staring at the empty sky. "She's gone." Tyrion lowered his head. She didn't want to rule. She wanted peace. Sansa turned, her face hardening. And she gave it. Days later, back at Winterfell, Bran declared the shadow gone. The lands beyond the wall were still cold but normal. Alive. The realm sent no crown for Daenerys. No songs, no statues. But in the north, where the snow never forgets, they remembered the Targaryen who walked into death and didn't return. A dragon's cry was heard every full moon from the skies above the wall. They say Drogon still searches, still waiting for her. And in the frost, they say, fire sleeps waiting to rise again.